The grand arena of Velthar Prime floated in the darkness of space like a massive jewel. Inside, thousands of alien beings from across the galaxy filled the viewing stands. They came to watch the trials of endurance, a competition so brutal that most species refused to participate. This year, 47 brave souls had registered to compete. Taeyang stood in the competitors' staging area, trying not to look nervous. He was human, which meant he was one of the smallest beings present. Around him, massive creatures with scales, claws, and armor prepared for the trials ahead. Some had 4 arms, others had thick shells, a few glowed with their own inner light. He wore simple clothing and carried basic gear. His colony ship had broken down near this station 3 weeks ago. The repairs would cost more credits than his crew had saved in 5 years. When he learned about the trial's prize money, he knew what he had to do. His captain had tried to stop him. Nari, his oldest friend, had begged him not to enter. But Taeyang was stubborn. He always had been. "Is that a human?" A booming voice echoed across the staging area. Taeyang turned to see Lord Vormandis, a Krell noble, pointing at him with one of his 4 massive arms. The Krell stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick reptilian scales. His eyes glowed amber in the artificial light. "I didn't know the coalition allowed pets to compete," Vormandis said, and his entourage of lesser nobles laughed. Taeyang said nothing. He had dealt with bullies before. "Look at it," Vormandis continued, circling Taeyang like a predator studying prey. "No claws. No armor. No natural weapons at all. Its skin looks like it would tear from a gentle breeze. How did such a weak species even achieve space travel?" A female voice spoke up from the noble section. "Perhaps you underestimate them, Lord Vormandis. I have heard humans possess certain unique abilities." "Unique abilities?" Vormandis laughed harder. "Lady Thessara, you are too kind. This creature looks like it would die from looking at the first trial." The aquatic noble, Lady Thessara, shifted in her water-filled sphere. "Nevertheless, perhaps caution." "I will make a wager," Vormandis announced loudly, cutting her off. The staging area fell silent. Wagers made before the trials were binding under coalition law. Everyone knew this. "I bet my ancestral honor blade, my family's seat on the Krell High Council, and my entire personal fortune that this human will not survive past the second trial." Vormandis's voice rang out clearly. "Let the galaxy witness my oath," the crowd murmured. This was serious. The Krell noble was betting everything he had. Taeyang felt every eye turn to him. In the viewing stands high above, he knew Nari was watching, probably horrified. But something about the Krell's arrogance made Taeyang smile. "I accept your wager," Taeyang said quietly. Vormandis blinked in surprise. "What?" "I accept. But I'll add my own terms. When I complete all 5 trials, you will stand before the entire Galactic Coalition and publicly acknowledge that humanity deserves respect." Taeyang's voice was calm but firm. The noble's face twisted in amusement. "When you complete all 5 trials? You mean if you somehow survive the first one?" "All 5, Taeyang repeated. "Do you accept? Or are you afraid to bet against a pet?" Vormandis's pride wouldn't allow him to back down now. "Agreed. The wager is sealed." The arena's automated system recorded the bet. It was now official and broadcast across the galaxy. There was no turning back. Hours later, the first trial began. The competitors were transported to a small planetoid with a surface temperature of 200 degrees Celsius. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Each competitor had to reach a marker 50 kilometers away and return. They had 48 hours. Taeyang watched as other species prepared. The Krell put on light cooling vests and prepared to charge forward with their massive strength. The crystalline beings needed no protection at all. The insectoid species activated their natural heat resistance. Taeyang had only a basic water supply and cloth wrapping. He looked weak compared to the others. Several competitors laughed as they passed him. The starting signal fired. Immediately, most competitors sprinted forward. They wanted to finish quickly before the heat became unbearable. Taeyang did something different. He started walking at a steady, even pace. The Krell competitors were out of sight within minutes, their powerful legs carrying them across the burning sand like charging bulls. Taeyang kept walking, one foot in front of the other. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Conserve water. Keep a steady rhythm. By the 6th hour, things had changed. Taeyang passed the first collapsed competitor, a bull-like creature that had overheated despite its size. By the 10th hour, he passed 3 more. They had run too fast and burned through their energy and cooling systems. The Krell he passed looked shocked. How was this small, weak human still moving? Taeyang's body did something special. Something most other species couldn't do. He sweated. His body released moisture that evaporated and cooled his skin. It was simple, but effective. While other species could only pant or relied on technology to cool down, Taeyang's body automatically regulated its temperature. He also had another advantage. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. His ancestors had chased animals across African plains for days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. That same ability lived in Taeyang's genes. His body was built for this, designed by evolution to move steadily for hours, for days if necessary. 20 hours into the trial, Taeyang reached the marker. He touched it, took a drink of water, and turned around. The return journey would be harder, but he knew his limits. He knew he could make it. 36 hours after the trial began, Taeyang crossed the finish line. He was covered in salt from dried sweat, and his legs ached, but he was smiling. Only 31 of the original 47 competitors had survived. In the viewing stands, Nari was crying with relief. In his private box, Lord Vormandus stared at the human with a new expression. Not amusement anymore. Something else. The first seed of doubt. Luck, Vormandus told himself. The human simply got lucky. The second trial will eliminate him. But even as he said it, the Krell noble felt something cold settle in his stomach. He remembered the way the human had moved, never stopping, never slowing, just walking with terrible, patient certainty toward his goal. In the galaxy's sports networks, human expert Hyun was being interviewed. What you witnessed, he explained to billions of viewers, is called persistence hunting. Humans are the galaxy's endurance specialists. We don't sprint. We don't need to. We just keep going. The second trial would begin in 3 days. Taeyang returned to his ship, ate a huge meal, and slept for 16 hours straight. When Nari checked on him, she found him reviewing technical specifications for deep-sea pressure suits. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Preparing," Taeyang said simply. "The next trial is underwater. I need to understand the equipment." Nari sat beside her friend. "You know the whole galaxy is watching now, right? That Krell noble's bet has made you famous." Taeyang shrugged. "I'm not here to be famous. I'm here to fix our ship and get our people home." That was the thing about Taeyang, Nari thought. He didn't care about glory or proving anything. He just saw a problem and worked to solve it. That simple determination made him more dangerous than he looked. Somewhere in his luxury quarters, Lord Vormandus was thinking the same thing. The second trial took place on an ice moon covered in frozen oceans. Beneath the thick ice was water so deep and dark that most species feared even looking at it. The trial was simple in theory but deadly in practice. Competitors had to dive 3,000 meters down to retrieve a marker, then return to the surface. The pressure at that depth could crush steel. Taeyang stood at the edge of the ice hole and looked down. Somewhere far below, in complete darkness, was his goal. He wore a pressure suit cobbled together from spare parts he had traded for. Other competitors had mocked his equipment. It looked like junk compared to their specialized gear. Lord Vormandus watched from his viewing box with less confidence than before. He had spent the past 3 days researching humans and didn't like what he found. They were adaptable. They used tools better than most species. They had a strange ability to solve problems in unexpected ways. Still, There was no way the fragile human could survive 3,000 meters of pressure. The trial began. The Krell competitors dove with powerful strokes, their dense bodies and natural resistance to pressure giving them an advantage. The aquatic species moved through the water like it was their home. The armored beings sank quickly, their shells protecting them from the crushing force. Taeyang activated his makeshift suit and began his descent. The pressure increased with every meter. At 500 meters, his suit started making concerning noises. At 1,000 meters, the seals began to leak. By 1,500 meters, alarms were screaming in his helmet. In the viewing stands, Nari gripped her seat. "No. No," she whispered. But Taeyang didn't panic. He stopped his descent and made careful adjustments. The suit wasn't going to make it. He had known this might happen, so he had prepared a backup plan. At 2,000 meters, with his suit failing completely, Taeyang did something that shocked every observer. He removed the suit. The galactic sports commentators went silent. Hyun, the human expert, was pulled in for emergency analysis. "Is he attempting suicide?" one alien commentator asked. "No," Hyun said slowly, watching the monitors. "He's using free-diving techniques. Humans have something called the mammalian dive reflex. When our faces touch cold water, our bodies automatically redirect blood to our vital organs. Our heart rate slows. We can hold our breath for much longer than you'd expect. But the pressure, he's not fighting it," Hyun explained. "Watch. He's making multiple shallow dives, letting his body slowly adapt. It's called acclimatization. Humans are very good at adapting to extreme environments." Taeyang spent hours making careful descents, each one slightly deeper than the last. His body adjusted bit by bit. He used techniques that ancient human divers had developed thousands of years ago on Earth. Between dives, he rested and breathed deeply, preparing his lungs and blood for the next attempt. Lord Vormandis watched in growing horror. The human should be dead. The pressure alone should have killed him. But there he was, adapting, adjusting, solving a problem that should have been unsolvable. "Impossible," Vormandis muttered. Lady Thessara, watching from her water sphere, made a sound that might have been laughter. "You chose the wrong species to underestimate, old friend." After 12 hours of careful work, Taeyang finally reached the marker at 3,000 meters. His lungs burned. His ears ached. Every part of his body screamed in protest. But he grabbed the marker and began the slow ascent, stopping at intervals to avoid pressure sickness. 23 competitors survived the second trial. Taeyang was one of them. When he emerged from the water, medical teams rushed to check him. They found bruising and minor injuries, but nothing serious. Somehow, impossibly, the human had survived. Nari was there immediately, wrapping him in thermal blankets. "You idiot," she said, but she was smiling through tears. "You brilliant, crazy idiot." "The suit failed," Taeyang said simply, as if that explained everything. "So you just decided to dive without one?" It seemed like the logical solution. Back on Earth, humanity was celebrating. Their representative had survived 2 trials. More importantly, the galaxy was starting to take notice. News networks across 1,000 worlds were analyzing human capabilities. Scientists were reviewing Earth's evolutionary history. Some of what they found disturbed them. One Krell researcher appeared on a major news program. "Humans evolved as persistence predators," she explained. "On their homeworld, they hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They can run for days. They heal injuries while continuing to move. They can survive in environments ranging from frozen tundra to burning deserts. They are perhaps the most adaptable species we've encountered." "Are they dangerous?" the host asked. The researcher paused. "That depends on your definition. They're not aggressive by nature, but they are relentless. Once a human commits to a goal, they rarely give up." Lord Vormandis saw this broadcast in his quarters. He threw his drink across the room in frustration. His advisors had been sending him messages all day. The Krell High Council wanted to know why he had made such a reckless wager. His family was demanding he find a way to break the oath. His political enemies were already circling, smelling weakness, but there was no escape. A public wager before the trials was sacred under coalition law. To break it would mean worse than losing everything. It would mean exile and permanent dishonor. 3 more trials, he told himself. The human can't survive. 3 more trials. But his words sounded hollow even to himself. The 3rd trial was announced 2 days later. It would be a team event. 5 randomly selected competitors would work together in a massive holographic labyrinth while hunting other teams and being hunted by automated drones. It would test cooperation, strategy, and combat skills. Taeyang was assigned to a team that seemed designed to fail. His teammates were Crix, a small insectoid with fast reflexes but a fragile body; Morokal, a plant-based being that moved slowly but could regenerate damage; Tharn, a Krell warrior who looked at Taeyang with disgust; and Jiwoo, another human from a different colony. When they met for the first time, Tharn spoke first. "I refuse to rely on weak creatures. The humans will slow us down." Jiwoo, a woman with sharp eyes and tactical training, smiled coldly. "Then, try to keep up." The trial began at dawn. 23 competitors divided into teams and entered the labyrinth. The walls shifted constantly. The drones attacked without warning. Other teams could be anywhere. What happened next would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Taeyang and Jiwoo immediately took command, not through force but through competence. They mapped the labyrinth's patterns. They predicted where drones would appear. They tracked other teams through subtle signs that other species missed. Tharn, watching the humans work, felt his contempt slowly change to confusion, then to grudging respect. They moved with purpose. They communicated with tiny gestures and glances, and they never, ever stopped. When their team encountered a drone, Taeyang did something that made the entire galaxy pause. He picked up a piece of debris and threw it. The throw was perfect, striking the drone's sensor at 30 meters and disabling it instantly. "What was that?" Crix chittered in amazement. "Humans are the only species that evolved precision throwing," Jiwoo explained while scanning for threats. "We can calculate trajectory, distance, and timing instinctively. It's how our ancestors hunted." For 12 hours, the team moved through the labyrinth. They didn't rush. They didn't panic. They just methodically eliminated threats and avoided unnecessary fights. When they encountered a team of heavily armored Krell warriors, Jiwoo made a decision that seemed insane. "We run," she said. "From them?" Tharn was shocked. "We should fight." "No," Taeyang agreed with Jiwoo. "We chase them until they can't run anymore." And that's what they did. For 18 straight hours, the human-led team chased the Krell warriors through the labyrinth. They never stopped. They took turns resting while moving. They ate while walking. They coordinated without words. The Krell warriors, built for overwhelming bursts of power, began to slow after 6 hours. After 12, they were stumbling. After 18, they collapsed from exhaustion, unable to continue. Galactic viewers watched in horror and fascination. A commentator whispered, "The humans aren't fighting them. They're hunting them." When the trial ended, only 3 teams remained. Taeyang's team had swept the competition without losing a single member. In his viewing box, Lord Vormandus sat in silence. His hands trembled. Tharn, his fellow Krell, had sent him a message. It was just 3 words. "They don't stop." The noble finally understood what he had done. He hadn't bet against a weak species. He had bet against the galaxy's most patient, most relentless, most adaptable predators, and now there was no escape. After the 3rd trial, the galaxy couldn't stop talking about humans. News programs ran constant analysis. Scientists debated their evolutionary advantages. Military strategists quietly took notes. Earth, previously ignored as an insignificant backwater world, suddenly received diplomatic requests from a dozen major powers. Nari found herself as the unofficial spokesperson for humanity. In interviews, she patiently explained human biology, psychology, and history. She talked about persistence hunting, endurance running, and the ability to throw with accuracy. She described how humans could survive in almost any environment, from frozen poles to burning deserts. But what makes humans truly dangerous? One reporter asked. Their physical abilities? Or their minds? Nari thought carefully before answering. Both. But more than that, it's our refusal to accept defeat. Humans are optimists. We look at impossible problems and say, not yet, instead of never. The interview was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched. In the Krell High Council chambers, emergency meetings were held. Lord Vormandus had become an embarrassment. His wager now threatened Krell prestige across the galaxy. Council members demanded he find a way out. Break the oath, one elder suggested. Accept the dishonor. It's better than losing everything. No, Vormandus said firmly. The oath is sacred. I will not break it. Then find another way. Disqualify the human on technicalities. File complaints. Demand rule changes. Vormandus tried everything. He filed formal complaints claiming Taeyang's improvised equipment violated safety regulations. The judges reviewed and denied it. He demanded humans be classified as a restricted species until full biological analysis was complete. The coalition rejected it. He claimed Jiwoo and Taeyang working together gave humanity an unfair advantage. The response was simple. Teamwork was the point of the third trial. Every attempt failed. Taeyang had broken no rules. He had simply competed and won. In desperation, Vormandus went to Lady Thesazara. The Luminary noble received him in her aquatic habitat, her translucent form glowing softly in the water. You came to ask for help, she said. It wasn't a question. I came to ask for advice, Vormandus corrected, trying to maintain some dignity. Advice is simple. Accept your defeat gracefully. The human has earned his victory. There are still 2 trials remaining. Yes, Lady Thessara agreed. And he will survive both. You know this now, don't you? Vormandus said nothing. He did know. After watching 3 trials, after seeing what humans could do, he understood the terrible truth. They were built to survive. That was their evolutionary purpose. Not to be the strongest or fastest or toughest, but to simply outlast everything else. Why didn't you warn me more strongly? He asked bitterly. I tried. You chose not to listen. Pride is expensive. Lord Vormandus. You're learning that lesson now. The 4th trial was announced. Competitors would perform repairs on a damaged satellite in open space while navigating through a debris field. Cosmic radiation levels were high. The vacuum of space was unforgiving. It was a test of technical skill and grace under pressure. Most species expected this trial to eliminate the humans. After all, humanity was barely spacefaring. The Krell had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. The crystalline beings had built Dyson spheres. What could primitive humans know about space? The answer surprised everyone. Taeyang entered the debris field with calm confidence. His movements in zero gravity were precise and controlled. His hands worked the repair tools with practiced ease. Other competitors struggled with the 3-dimensional thinking required for space navigation. Taeyang excelled at it. Human brains evolved to calculate throwing trajectories. That same ability translated perfectly to understanding movement in zero gravity. Taeyang could look at a piece of debris, calculate its path, and adjust his position without conscious thought. It was instinct. More importantly, his engineering training was recent and practical. The ancient spacefaring species had grown complacent. Their technology worked so well, they rarely had to improvise. Taeyang had spent years keeping a struggling colony ship running with limited resources. He knew how to fix things with whatever was available. Jiwoo performed equally well. She approached the problem from a different angle, more aggressive and experimental, but just as effective. Together, the 2 humans completed their repairs faster than any other competitors. When the trial ended, only 8 competitors remained. Both humans survived. Galactic military observers took careful notes. One Krell general sent a classified report to the High Council. It read simply, Recommend immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. Classification. Potential strategic asset or threat. Do not ignore. That night, Vormandus sat alone in his quarters, his ancestral honor blade laid out before him. In Krell culture, the blade represented everything. Family, history, honor. He would lose it all because he mocked a species he didn't understand. A message arrived from his family. They had officially disowned him. He was no longer welcome in their house. His name would be removed from the family records. It was as if he had never existed. He poured himself a drink and stared at the blade. There was always one final option. In Krell culture, if one's honor was completely destroyed, one could choose the blade rather than face exile. It would be painful but quick. A chime at his door interrupted his dark thoughts. When he opened it, Taeyang stood there. "What do you want?" Vormandus asked harshly. "To talk," Taeyang said simply. "I have nothing to say to you." "Then listen." Taeyang stepped inside without invitation. "I know what you're thinking. I can see it on your face. Don't do it. You know nothing about Krell honor. I know about desperation. I know about feeling like you've lost everything." Taeyang sat down without being asked. "My colony ship was failing. My crew was depending on me. I had no good options. But giving up wasn't an option at all. This is different. You're winning. I'm losing everything. You're losing because you made assumptions without evidence. That's not the same as being defeated by superior force. Learn from it instead of running from it." Vormandus laughed bitterly. "Philosophical advice from the creature who's destroying my life. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just competing. You destroyed your own life with arrogance and prejudice." Taeyang stood to leave. "The final trial is tomorrow. I'm going to complete it. You're going to honor your wager. And then we're both going to move forward. That's what survival looks like." After Taeyang left, Vormandus sat in silence for a long time. He hated that the human was right. This wasn't about the trials anymore. It was about his own failures. He put the honor blade away. If he had to face dishonor, he would face it with eyes open, not escape it through death. The next morning, Nari visited Taeyang before the final trial. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," he admitted, "but ready. One more trial and we can go home. You know the whole galaxy is watching, right? You've become a symbol. Earth is receiving diplomatic requests because of you." Taeyang shrugged. "I just want to fix our ship." Nari laughed. "You're probably the only person in the galaxy who could become famous and not care at all. Fame doesn't repair hull breaches." "No. But it might open doors for humanity. We're not invisible anymore. Taeyang. The galaxy sees us now. Then they'll see us finish what we started." The final trial was the most mysterious. Competitors were told only that it would test their species' weaknesses. Each being would face their evolutionary nightmare, whatever that meant. As Taeyang prepared his equipment, he thought about what that could mean for humans. What was humanity's greatest weakness? Physical fragility? Social isolation? Resource scarcity? The unknown? Whatever it was, he would face it the same way he faced everything else. One step at a time, refusing to quit, adapting as needed. In the viewing stands, Nari sat beside Hyun. The sports analyst looked nervous. "What's wrong?" she asked. "The trial system has limited data on humans," Hyun explained. "It might not know what our real weaknesses are. It could create something based on incomplete information. Is that good or bad? I don't know. That's what worries me." Across the station, in his quarters, Lord Vormandus watched the preparations. He didn't hope for the human to fail anymore. That hope had died somewhere around the third trial. Now, he just wanted it to be over. His communicator chimed. A message from Tharn, the Krell warrior, who had competed alongside Taeyang. "My lord, if you could have seen them up close, you would understand. They are not weak. They are the opposite. They are patient death. They hunt by never stopping. We cannot outlast them. We can only hope they choose to be our friends instead of our enemies. Vormandus deleted the message. He didn't need more reminders of his mistake. The final trial would begin in 1 hour. The final trial chamber was unlike anything the competitors had seen before. It was a massive sphere filled with smaller chambers, each one customized for a specific species. The automated system had spent days preparing unique challenges designed to exploit each competitor's deepest evolutionary fears. For the Krell, the chamber contained complete isolation. Their species evolved as pack hunters. Their psychology dependent on social bonds. Being alone for extended periods drove them mad. For the crystalline beings, the chamber blasted sonic frequencies that could shatter their bodies if they failed to find the dampening controls in time. For the Luminari, the chamber was absolute darkness, cutting them off from the light their species needed to function. Each nightmare was personalized, built from thousands of years of galactic biological data. Taeyang stood before his assigned chamber. The door was simple metal, unremarkable, but he knew whatever waited inside was designed to break him. Competitor Taeyang, the automated voice announced, your trial will last 72 hours. You must survive and signal for rescue using only resources available in the environment. The chamber will simulate systemic failures. You will be alone. Good luck. The door opened. Taeyang stepped inside. The chamber was a small habitat module, the kind used on space stations. It had life support, food storage, basic tools, and communication equipment. Everything looked normal at first. Then the problems began. Hour 1. The temperature regulation failed. The chamber grew cold quickly. Taeyang found spare thermal blankets and insulation material. He wrapped the critical systems to keep them functional and layered clothing to preserve body heat. Simple problem, simple solution. Hour 3. The air recycling system started failing. Carbon dioxide levels rose. Taeyang located the scrubber filters, improvised replacements using available materials, and managed to restore partial function. It wouldn't last forever, but it would last 72 hours. Hour 6. The lighting failed. Complete darkness. In the viewing stands, Nari leaned forward. This is when humans should panic, an alien commentator said. Darkness triggers primal fear in most species. But Taeyang didn't panic. He had lived on ships where power failures were common. He felt his way around the chamber, mapped its layout by touch, and continued working. Human eyes were good at adapting to low light, and his other senses compensated for what he couldn't see. Hour 12. The communication system appeared to fail completely. This was the challenge designed to break him. Isolation. No contact with the outside world. No way to call for help. Just darkness, failing systems, and the knowledge that no rescue was coming. The automated system waited for signs of psychological breakdown. Most species would start showing stress responses by now. Panic, despair, irrational decision-making. Taeyang did something unexpected. He started singing. It was an old Earth song, something his mother taught him as a child. The words didn't matter. The act of singing kept his mind occupied, and his spirits up. It was a very human response to isolation, creating sound and rhythm to fight the silence. Then he got to work on the real problem. The communication system wasn't actually broken. It was just disabled. Taeyang spent hours carefully tracing circuits, identifying the disabled components, and finding ways to bypass or repair them using salvaged parts. Hour 24. Water supply contaminated. Taeyang built a basic filtration system using mesh, charcoal from burned materials, and sand from the fire extinguisher. It was crude, but effective. Clean water resumed flowing. In the observation center, galactic scientists watched in amazement. He's not just surviving, Hyun explained to the billions watching. He's problem-solving. Every challenge the system presents, he treats as a puzzle to solve. Not a disaster to fear. But what about the psychological pressure? A commentator asked. We do, Hyun agreed. But we're also very good at being alone when necessary. Our ancestors often had to survive in isolation. We developed mental coping mechanisms, singing, talking to ourselves, creating routines, making tools. We stay sane by staying busy. Hour 36. The structural integrity alarm activated. The chamber appeared to be losing pressure. This was a bluff. The chamber was fine. But the alarm was designed to create panic. Most species would rush to fix a non-existent problem or waste time preparing for explosive decompression. Tae-Yang checked the actual pressure readings, determined the alarm was false, and disabled it. He trusted his instruments more than the warning system. Then he went back to repairing the communication array. Hour 48. Food supplies appeared spoiled. Tae-Yang tested them carefully, determined which were actually safe, rationed what remained, and supplemented by finding emergency protein packets hidden in maintenance panels. Humans were omnivores. They could eat a wide variety of foods. It was an advantage now. Meanwhile, Ji-Woo faced her own trial in a separate chamber. Her challenge was different but equally brutal. While Tae-Yang faced slow system failure, Ji-Woo faced rapid cascading emergencies that required quick thinking and aggressive action. Her approach was opposite to Tae-Yang's patient methodology, but equally effective. The galaxy watched both humans and saw something that worried them: diversity. One human solved problems through patience and careful analysis, the other through rapid adaptation and bold action. Different strategies, but both successful. They're not all the same, a Krell analyst reported to the High Council. Human problem-solving is diverse and flexible. You can't predict how they'll respond because they don't all respond the same way. That makes them tactically unpredictable. Hour 60. The gravity generators fluctuated wildly. Tae-Yang strapped himself down during high gravity, floated carefully during zero gravity, and used the fluctuations to test his repaired communication array. Each gravity change moved components slightly, helping him identify which connections were still faulty. Hour 68. The automated system tried one final test. It shut down all power. Complete darkness. No heat. No air circulation. Just Tae-Yang alone in a dead metal box, floating in zero gravity with only emergency chemical lights. This was meant to simulate total system failure, the nightmare of every space traveler. The point where there's nothing left to fix, no more options, just waiting to die. Tae-Yang activated a chemical light stick, pulled himself to the communication panel he'd spent days repairing, and powered it up using a battery he'd carefully charged with salvaged solar cells and the chamber's emergency power tap. The communication system flickered to life. "This is competitor Tae-Yang," he said calmly into the microphone. "All major systems have failed. I have restored emergency communications using available resources. Requesting extraction." Hour 72. The trial ended. The chamber door opened. Medical teams rushed in. They found Tae-Yang floating peacefully in zero gravity, wrapped in thermal blankets, humming a song. "Are you injured?" a medic asked. "Dehydrated. Tired. But functional," Tae-Yang replied. "How did you survive all that?" Tae-Yang smiled. "One problem at a time." Ji-Woo emerged from her chamber moments later, looking rougher but equally victorious. She had taken a more aggressive approach, essentially fighting her way through each challenge with quick thinking and bold improvisation. 3 competitors had survived all 5 trials: Tae-Yang, Ji-Woo, and Tharn, the Krell warrior who had learned to respect humans during the team trial. The award ceremony was scheduled for the next day. The entire galaxy would watch. Lord Vormandis would have to fulfill his wager. That night, Vormandis received an unexpected visitor. Lady Thessazara appeared at his door. "I came to offer wisdom before tomorrow," she said. "I've had enough wisdom. It changes nothing." "Perhaps not. But consider this. You made a mistake. A terrible, costly mistake. But the human offered you advice. Remember? Learn from it, instead of running from it." "What's there to learn? That I'm a fool?" "No. That assumptions are dangerous. That different doesn't mean weak. That pride clouds judgment. Lady Thessara's luminous form pulsed gently. Tomorrow, you will stand before the galaxy and acknowledge humanity's worth. You can do it with bitterness and make yourself look small. Or you can do it with genuine respect and perhaps salvage some dignity. The galaxy will mock me either way. Some will, others will respect that you honored your oath despite the cost. There is dignity in keeping one's word, even when it hurts. After she left, Vormandus thought about her words. He thought about Taeyang's visit, the human's simple advice about learning from mistakes. He thought about Tharn's message about patient death. For the first time since making the wager, Vormandus tried to see humans not as the species that humiliated him, but as they actually were: adaptable, persistent, clever, not weak, just different. It didn't make losing everything easier, but it made it more bearable. Tomorrow, he would face the galaxy and honor his oath. And perhaps, in some small way, begin to rebuild his honor through honest acknowledgement rather than bitter denial. In the human quarters, Nari hugged Taeyang tightly. "You did it. You actually did it. We need to get the prize money processed," Taeyang said practically. "The ship repairs can't wait," Nari laughed. Of course. Always practical, but she saw something in his eyes. Pride. Not in glory or fame, but in accomplishment. He had set out to solve a problem, and he solved it. That was enough. Across the galaxy, Earth celebrated. Humanity had proven itself worthy of respect. The doors to the galactic community were opening, and it had all started because one arrogant noble underestimated a species he didn't understand. The grand arena was filled beyond capacity. Every viewing stand was packed. Millions more watched from across the galaxy through live broadcasts. The award ceremony for the Trials of Endurance was always a major event. But this year was special. This year, everyone wanted to see what would happen when Lord Vormandus honored his wager. Taeyang stood in the competitors' area with Jiwoo and Tharn. They wore simple ceremonial robes provided by the arena. Jiwoo looked proud and fierce. Tharn stood with military dignity. Taeyang just looked tired. "How do you feel?" Jiwoo asked him. "Like I want to sleep for a week." "You're about to be famous across the entire galaxy and you want to sleep? Fame doesn't repair ship hulls," Taeyang said for what felt like the 100th time. Tharn made a rumbling sound that might have been Krell laughter. "You are a strange creature, human. Any other being would be celebrating this moment. You treat it like a job completed." "Because that's what it is," Taeyang said simply. Nari watched from the VIP section reserved for competitor families. Beside her sat Hyun, who had become humanity's voice during the trials. He was preparing notes for the inevitable interviews that would follow. "This is the beginning of something big," Hyun said. "Earth is receiving diplomatic requests from 47 different species. Trade negotiations, defense pacts, cultural exchanges, everything." "Because Taeyang survived some trials?" Nari asked. "Because he proved humanity is worth paying attention to. We're not just another weak species anymore. We're survivors. Adaptable. Useful. That matters in galactic politics." The ceremony began with traditional music from various worlds. Coalition officials gave speeches about courage, endurance, and the spirit of competition. Finally, they called the 3 survivors forward to receive their prizes. Taeyang, Jiwoo, and Tharn stepped onto the central platform. The prize was substantial, enough to repair a dozen colony ships. But more valuable than credits was the recognition. Survivors of the trials earned automatic citizenship in the Galactic Coalition and the right to speak before the Council. The arena official presented them with ceremonial medals and credit certificates. The crowd applauded. It was all very formal and proper. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. "We have one additional matter to address," the official announced. Before the trials began, Lord Vormandus of the Krell High Council made a public wager. As that wager has been legally recorded, he must now fulfill its terms. The crowd fell silent. Every eye turned to the private box, where Vormandus sat alone. His family had disowned him. His political allies had abandoned him. He wore his ancestral honor blade one final time, knowing he would lose it within minutes. Vormandis stood and made his way to the platform. He moved slowly, with dignity, like a warrior walking to his execution. When he reached the stage, he faced Tae-young. "Competitor Tae-young," the official said, "the terms of the wager require Lord Vormandis to publicly acknowledge humanity's worth before the Galactic Coalition. Do you wish to claim this term?" Before Vormandis could speak, Tae-young stepped forward. "I have something to say first." The official looked surprised but nodded. Tae-young turned to face the massive crowd and the billions watching across the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "Lord Vormandis made a mistake. He looked at humans and saw weakness because we don't have claws or armor or scales. He made assumptions based on appearance. But here's the truth. He wasn't the only one." Tae-young gestured to the crowd. "How many of you thought the same thing? How many of you looked at the competitor list and dismissed the humans immediately? How many assumed we'd fail in the first trial?" Uncomfortable silence spread through the arena. "You saw us as weak because we're different, because we don't fit your expectations of what a strong species looks like. But evolution doesn't create waste. Every species that survived long enough to reach the stars did so because they were the best at something." Tae-young's voice grew stronger. "Humans aren't the strongest. We're not the fastest. We don't have natural weapons or armor. But we survived on Earth because we never stopped trying. We learned to make tools when we didn't have claws. We learned to run for days when we couldn't sprint. We learned to adapt when we couldn't overpower. We looked at a world that was trying to kill us, and we refused to die." He turned back to Vormandis. "You bet against humanity without understanding what humanity is. You lost because you were ignorant. Not because we're exceptional. We're just another species doing what we evolved to do, which is survive." Tae-young paused, then continued, "I don't need you to acknowledge our worth. We know what we are. But I'll accept an apology for underestimating us. Not because you owe it to me personally, but because you owe it to every species you've dismissed without understanding them first." The arena was completely silent. No one had expected this. Vormandis stared at the human. He had prepared a formal acknowledgement, carefully worded to fulfill the wager's terms, while maintaining some dignity. But Tae-young's words had changed something. They had given him an opportunity he didn't expect. "You're right," Vormandis said, his voice carrying through the arena. "I made assumptions based on ignorance and pride. I looked at your species and saw only physical weakness. I didn't see the endurance, the adaptability, the refusal to quit. I didn't see the problem-solving ability, the cooperation, the sheer stubborn persistence." He removed his ancestral honor blade and held it before him. "I wagered this blade, my council seat, and my fortune. The wager stands. But you've offered me something I didn't deserve. A chance to apologize instead of just acknowledge." Vormandis looked directly at Tae-young. "I apologize to humanity for underestimating your species. I apologize for my arrogance. And I apologize for failing to learn before I judged." Then he did something that shocked every Krell watching. He lowered his head in a gesture of respect. In Krell culture, this was significant. Nobles never bowed to anyone of lower rank. "I accept your apology," Tae-young said. "And I suggest you don't make the same mistake again. Not just with humans, but with any species. Strength comes in many forms." The official stepped forward, looking somewhat confused about how to proceed. "The wager's terms have been fulfilled. Lord Vormandis, you must relinquish your honor blade, your council seat, and transfer your fortune to the human competitor." "Wait," Tae-young said. "I want to modify the terms." "The wager is binding," the official began. "I'm the one he wagered against. I have the right to accept modified terms, don't I?" The official checked the legal database. "Yes, technically, if both parties agree." Tae-young turned to Vormandis. "Keep your honor blade. It's a symbol of your family, and you losing it hurts them more than you. Keep your council seat too, but use it better. Learn from this. Become the voice that warns against making assumptions based on ignorance. Vormandus stared in disbelief. You would release me from the wager? Renegade, you would release me from the wager. I said modify, not release. You still owe me. But I don't need your blade or your seat. I just need you to remember this lesson and teach it to others. Can you do that? Quote, Vormandus felt something he hadn't expected. Relief mixed with genuine respect. Yes, I can do that. Then we're settled. Transfer the fortune as agreed. I still need to repair my ship. Taeyang smiled slightly. And maybe donate some to establish formal relations between Earth and the Krell Empire. Seems like a useful investment. The crowd erupted in applause. It wasn't just politeness anymore. It was genuine appreciation for what they had witnessed. Mercy, wisdom, and practical thinking, all displayed by the species they had dismissed as weak. Nari was crying in the stands. Hyun was already writing notes for what would become one of the most important diplomatic documents in human history. Jiwoo leaned over to Taeyang. You just gave up a fortune in political leverage. I gave up nothing, Taeyang corrected. I gained a Krell ally, who will spend the rest of his life defending humanity out of guilt and respect. That's worth more than his seat on some council. You sneaky, brilliant man. Lady Thesizera watched from her water sphere and sent a message to Vormandus. It read simply, Well played, human. Well played indeed. The ceremony concluded with the presentation of coalition citizenship to all three survivors. Taeyang, Jiwoo, and Tharn received the formal recognition of their homeworlds as respected members of galactic society. For Jiwoo, it meant humanity had a voice in galactic politics. For Tharn, it meant honor restored and a bridge between Krell and humans established. For Taeyang, it meant he could finally fix his ship. 3 months later, Taeyang's colony ship departed Velthar Prime with new hull plating, upgraded systems, and enough supplies to reach their destination. Nari stood beside him on the bridge as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. You know Earth wants you to come back and be an ambassador, she said. I'm an engineer, not a diplomat. You just negotiated one of the most significant treaties in human history. I negotiated ship repairs. The treaty was a bonus. Nari laughed. You're impossible. I'm practical, Taeyang corrected. Before they jumped, a message came through. It was from Vormandus. Human Taeyang, I wanted you to know that the Krell High Council has established formal diplomatic relations with Earth. I proposed it personally and used my council seat to push it through. I also convinced them to open trade negotiations and cultural exchange programs. You were right. Evolution doesn't create waste. I'm learning to look for strength in different forms. Thank you for the lesson. May your stars shine bright. Taeyang read the message and smiled. Navigation. Prepare for jump. Destination? The navigator asked. Home, Taeyang said. Let's go home. As the colony ship entered hyperspace, Earth was welcoming its first official delegation from the Krell Empire. Humanity had gone from ignored and dismissed to recognized and respected in the span of weeks. All because one man refused to quit when faced with impossible challenges. All because one noble learned to look beyond his assumptions. All because both sides learned that strength comes in many forms. In the grand scheme of the galaxy, it was a small moment. But small moments change everything. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.